Jordan, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you believe in the afterlife?
Hmm.
Seriously.
In the afterlife, like meaning hell, like heaven and hell, or like
Exactly.
just
Like what happens after you die? Do you believe something happens or we just vanish and
uh, personally, I we were raised Catholic. It doesn't really connect with me. So me personally, I think that everybody has some sort of energy. It's more of like a spiritual like thing than like a religious thing. So I don't really strongly believe in like a heaven or hell, but I think that when you die, your energy does go somewhere else, whether that is reincarnation or not. I'm not sure what it is, but I think there's something. I just don't know if I'm heavy on the afterlife is in like the religious aspect, but I think there's something.
that makes sense. And here's the shocker I think I'm going to say to most people, and I don't know if you think about it this way, but if you do believe in religion, then you kind of believe in the simulation hypothesis
Okay.
because the reality is if you believe in a religion and there's an afterlife, then you're going somewhere else. And that means the life that we're living today is not your base reality. That's a secondary reality for us. And
Mm.
ultimately, the base reality would be the afterlife.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then if you believe in reincarnation, like you said, once again, if we're reincarnating, which is something I do believe in, then there's something else and it doesn't all make sense. What I'm trying to accomplish and where I've spent a lot of my time over the last, I would say, almost year, really exploring the simulation hypothesis is because I got questions. So,
Hell yeah.
so hopefully we're going to figure some and answer some of those questions. But the reality is, this is just my opinion and Jordan's opinion, and not necessarily like gospel per se.
It's not truth.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't really know what the truth is. So this is just our thoughts. But anyway, before we dig into that, welcome to Thriving in Ambiguity, where we break down the complexities of technology and now consciousness, ideally without losing our minds. I'm Steve Mancini, and today I'm introducing Jordan Mancini, who is our new co-host of the podcast and somebody I've asked to kind of do more of this with. I love her opinions. We've been having some conversations, and I said, you know what? Be really cool if she was part of the show. I think she adds a whole new dimension to the podcast. And so I'm really looking forward to having her on the show, hopefully permanently. So, Jordan, why don't you introduce yourself?
So this is my dad. What am I? I'm 22. I danced professionally, trying to get my foot in the dance industry. So if you ever heard of starving artists, that is me. But yeah, I don't know, what do I like to do? I love watching podcasts and educating myself on stuff I'm interested in. I don't know. Have any questions for me?
I do, I do. I have plenty of questions for you on how we're
Mm.
going to dig into this. So let's start with this one. I've watched you over the years play tons of video games,
Mhm.
specifically like The Sims and Minecraft. And help me
Mhm.
set the tone here. When you're playing Sims, what's the first thing that you typically do?
The first thing I would do is make a character. So whether I'm making myself or I come up with some weird family that I want to create, you're usually creating the look and the personality of your sim.
Awesome. That's originally what I thought of here was as I'm thinking through the simulation hypothesis, I kind of feel like when you're in that soul state, okay, before you're born, I kind of feel like you choose the life that you want to choose.
Oh,
It kind of makes sense to me that hey, there's a bigger purpose here, and I think if you and we're going to dig into this a little bit about fate, but if you think about fate and how as you get older, there seems to be more of a story that's being told than something that I can specifically just spout out. So if there's a story and there's fate, what if we chose that before we were born? So we're given different options, and maybe we've had plenty of past lives, and there's a thing called karma. And so typically you may need to grow in some area of your life. So what if you chose this life? You chose to be my daughter. You said, "Hey, I like that guy," or maybe he seems like he'd be a good dad. And I think it'd be really cool to be a dancer. I've never done that before,
Mhm.
or maybe be on Broadway or whatever. But there's obviously a number of challenges that need to be overcome for you to get there. So you thought, hey, this seems like a good opportunity, and I have the ability to do X, Y, and Z. And so I'm going to choose this life.
Mhm.
And boom, now you're born, right?
Yeah.
Does that kind of makes some sense, right?
It resonates a little bit. The only thing that I then question is, so if you picked your life and the kind of life you wanted to live, who your family was, whatever, and your story, why don't we remember? Like, you're born and, that's, I guess, where reincarnation, I guess, kind of plays a role, because some kids remember their past lives. But why don't we remember picking who we want to be?
I think part of that comes from, and people talk about, if you're Catholic, you talk about free will. And then when we talk about free will, there's also, like I spoke of fate. Do you have true free will if you believe in fate? Because if a series of events happens and it's like that was what was supposed to happen, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, well, then did you truly have free will? So my thought is free will actually starts when you chose your journey. And that's kind of the end of free will.
Mhm.
Okay. Because now there's a role that you have to play. And to get back to your question, you don't remember
Mhm.
because then now there's an outside influence. So you have almost like quests that you have to achieve
Almost
within
side
life.
quests.
Yeah, like a side quest. And um if you knew and you remembered past lives, or you remembered that, hey, I chose this, well then I kind of feel like that kind of ruins the journey a little bit. So
That makes sense.
I was I just got done reading this book. It was called The Simulation Hypothesis, and it's by Rizwan Virk. And it was really thought provoking. And one of the things that he does is he talks about video games and how ultimately the chances of us being in a simulation are really high if you believe that at some point we can get to what's called the simulation point. And that's where we have the technology, okay? And this is the technology portion of the episode, where we could actually reproduce and create an experience that feels very much like you're living in a video game. And they go back all the way through the history of video games, which someone from your perspective isn't going to know much about. Like when I was young, I remember when like the games like Pong came out. You ever heard of Pong?
Like the one where you like drink and throw.
No, no, not that,
That one, yeah.
not that Pong. I don't know anything about that. No, I'm talking about, there was literally a game where it was like a dot and a ball, and it would bounce off the top and it would come back and you could move the cursor, and that was it. Like it was like ball, and you just had to keep the ball from going off screen. So it was kind of like you're just bouncing like a ping pong
I
ball.
think the oldest game that I can remember playing is probably, I don't know, would it be like called Tetris? Where it's like I had it on my BlackBerry and then you just like had to like the shit. How do I explain this
All right,
game?
well, Pong is way before
That's the earliest
Tetris.
video game I can remember. And Pac-Man.
Oh, well, okay, so Pac-Man's is not too far off. That's an early game.
Yeah.
But if you think about, okay, those early games, and look, they're ultimately just a program. And if you think about the advancement over the years, I mean, I know that something I've been very interested in is augmented reality. And that's basically wearing a full VR headset.
Hmm.
And there's been some really cool movies and books on this as well, like Ready Player One. Have you seen that movie?
I think I have seen that movie.
That movie's crazy. Basically, what happens is it's a world set off in the future where the world gets very, very tough, okay, which we can all imagine. And there's a second world within VR that people, rather than going to work every day, they put on their VR headset and they actually earn a currency within the game world. And that can lead to real currency in real life, but they live within that world.
I think I've seen this movie. Then I watched uh do you watch Don't Worry, Darling?
No, I haven't seen that one.
That movie is has to do like with simulation. Like once you get to the sorry, that was a spoiler.
Hey.
Cause it was like it's one of those movies where it's like the trailer is literally nothing like the what's the word I'm looking for?
Like the movie itself?
No, like the plot twist. Like you
Okay.
wouldn't even suspect it. So when you watch it and then it's like this guy put I guess his girlfriend in a simulation basically by force. So and they lived in it and then so she starts to realize that like she's in a simulation and she's like, I don't know, it's really cool. I like that movie a lot.
Okay, so from a science fiction standpoint, you could see that it seems possible, right? That this could happen. And as video games advance, and what they're saying in this book is that at some point, video games are going to get so advanced that you won't be able to tell the difference between what is reality, which is really, really interesting. Now we're ways off, and what the author says is he's not really sure how long it's going to take to get there, but his reality is that at some point we will get there. We will get to the point where technology will advance far enough that it'll be indistinguishable. And so if we can wrap our heads around that piece, then if there is a God, okay, and a God as a master programmer, there's no reason to believe that things, a world could have been created and then we're taking our mental consciousness and kind of downloading that when we're having that conversation before we're born, we're choosing our destiny, then we're downloading our consciousness into our bodies, and then boom, we're going to live that life,
Mhm.
which is really, really interesting. And so it just fascinated. It was just a very fascinating conversation for me to really think. And then he got into like, I mean, it gets pretty deep within that book where they start to talk about quantum mechanics and quantum computing, which is obviously very advanced. And then it's funny because one of the things in quantum computing is this theory of things can be in two places at one time, and things are rendered as needed. And so, just like in a video game, because one of the thought processes, well, what kind of computing power would be needed to pull in a whole universe? Would that even be possible? And as part of quantum computing is things are rendered as needed. So if you look up into the stars and you say, oh, look at all them billions of planets, and you can see that, right? But the crazy part is, are they actual? Is it actually just a depiction and they're not real until you actually go there? Like if we're to travel to Mars or travel out past our galaxy to visit
Mhm.
one of these places, then the computer would then render that while we're there, but it doesn't need to until we actually go there. So
Okay.
it's kind of an interesting thought process.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that makes a lot of sense, and at least to me. And then that kind of led me to another book that I had read previous, and I've honestly I've read this book about 4 or 5 different times. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters, and it's about a psychiatrist, Brian Wise. He wrote this book based on he had a woman who worked at a hospital that he was at. She was a nurse. She comes to him suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress type disorder, and she comes to him for help.
Mhm.
And basically, what he says is typically in a post-traumatic stress situation is if you can find that person's trauma and talk through it, typically the symptoms go away. She was having headaches, she couldn't sleep,
Mm.
and it was getting worse and worse and worse. So she basically was almost unfunctional at work. So he got the idea of hypnosis. She was against it at first. She decides ultimately, okay, we'll give it a try. So under hypnosis, he says, take me back to your original trauma. Like what really bothers you? And so in that first hypnotic session, she says that her, I want to say it was her stepdad, might have been her father. And I think it was her father, may have molested her.
Mhm.
That, I mean, obviously, and it was a very young age at like 3 years old. And the doctor's like, that's got to be it. Now, she had no recollection of this in the past. So they talk about it, talk through it, pulls her out of hypnosis, thinking she's going to get better. She doesn't. He's like, that's really weird. Like, matter of fact, she gets worse. Has another session, pulls her back under hypnosis, says, okay, take me back before that. Like, maybe there's a trauma even before that. She starts then speaking of another life that she's had. Now, she had no recollection of this other life, but she starts to talk about how, I forget it because she went through, I want to say 80 different lives over the period of treatment over a couple months. And he's like totally blown away. Like she actually relives her deaths. And once again, she drowned in one, all these different life stories. And she basically tells them, and he's totally blown away. Now, he does not at this time believe in reincarnation. He's a scientist, he's got all of these degrees, but he's not going to dismiss it. So he starts to do some research, talk to some of his colleagues, digs deeper. So he keeps bringing her under and going deeper and deeper. And as he does, at the time that she dies, this person then speaks to her and she speaks in a different voice. And these people are called the masters. And they basically say, and as he starts to ask them questions, they start to speak of this type of reincarnation and karma and all of these other pieces. And I'm like, holy cow, like this makes so much more sense than the whole religion piece where it's like we die, we live this life, we do a good life, and we go to heaven.
Yeah.
I struggle to believe that we live here once, die, and then go to heaven or hell or purgatory or whatever, and that's it. And then you just live there forever. That just never resonated with me. I feel like there's got to be more to the equation. And so this whole idea of the masters and them helping you through lives become a better person every time and build on your karma, like that real, I was like, wow, yes, like that definitely makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
So in thinking through this whole piece of the masters, karma, then I'm on a walk and I start to like think deeply about this. And I said, what the video game piece then comes to me and it says, well, what if there's a like karma is like points in a video game where, we get to choose some of our attributes like you were describing in Sims,
Yeah.
but then we get to allocate points. So it's like, okay, you choose your adventure.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's these subquests.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, what am I going to need to accomplish that? So you get to choose, like, oh, in your case, like with dance, like, okay, maybe you need to be athletic. And maybe, in my case, I love leadership and I love technology. So I allocate points to those, but I struggle with memory.
Yeah.
So maybe I didn't put enough points in memory.
Yeah.
And that's why I always forget everything. But that's one of the challenges I have to overcome.
Yeah.
And so it's once again, it's that video game type atmosphere that really shows where, like, hey, this could all make sense. I mean, what are your thoughts there?
I struggle with the video game thing because then I kind of feel like, okay, well, then who runs the simulation or this video game thing? And that could be God, it could not be. But I think, because personally, I feel like I believe really heavily in science. And so the like reincarnation thing, like living multiple lives, it resonates with me more than this simulation that everything's a video game and you're getting to pick. Because I think people cling on to things for like relief and like people believe in religion and what's like the word I'm trying to use? Like it's like a comfort. So like when you find something that resonates with what you believe, it's a comfort. So that
Hmm.
they have something to believe in and rely on in life. And the simulation thing, I don't doubt that it might not be real, but I feel like sometimes people make things way too complicated. Like I'm pretty like, what you put in your body is like science, and how the Big Bang happened thing, it's science. Like that stuff makes more sense to me than way complicating everything else and turning it into, well, we got to pick our our life and how it's run. You know, not shitting on it. Just it's kind of going like this.
Let me take it here then. So obviously, I've lived a lot longer than you. And I think some of this starts to become questioned the longer you live. And I'll give you a story from my life because, like I said, I believe in a fate. And one of the things that happened when I was young, when I was about 10 years old, and I believe I've told you this story before, but there was a really bad thunderstorm and a tree fell on my childhood house. Tree falls on the house, knocks the power lines into the house, but doesn't knock them completely out. So there's like a power surge happening. Lights are going off and on, like the ceiling fans in the house are spinning super fast and they slow down super fast. So my dad's like, look, probably not the best idea for you to be here tonight. Why don't you go stay at a friend's house? Okay, so I call up one of my friends, one of my best friends. I go stay at his house.
Yeah.
My sister was getting ready to leave with her boyfriend. My sister was about 7 years older than me. So she was about 18, 19 years old. And her boyfriend was going to take her away to Florida with their family or something like that for a week. And so she had to pack. They had to get all their stuff ready. So that night there was no power in the house. Like I said, the power was going up and down. And I think at that time they probably killed the power to kill the surge, shut off
Hmm.
the power to the house. So they were doing everything by candlelight. Earlier in that day, my sister's boyfriend got in a confrontation with a guy who was giving my sister a hard time and basically threatened her.
Hmm.
Well, he found him and threatened him back and said, you ever mess with her, I'm going to kill you. The guy took it very seriously. And that night, while they were packing via candlelight, this person shot 2 or 3 shots into the house, into the candlelight. No, at basically shadows. They didn't know who they were shooting at. There was no way. They were up on a hill, shot down into the house, and one of the bullets struck my sister's boyfriend, and he died in her arms. It was crazy tragic. My dad, who's a Vietnam vet, he was actually making a cup of tea on the barbecue grill out yeah,
All
outside.
right.
He was making a cup of tea and he recognized the sound of gunfire.
Yeah.
He runs into the house only to find my sister's boyfriend on the floor, basically dying in my sister's arms. Call an ambulance. They're unable to save him. He passes away. And now here's the thing. If I was there, not only would I have potentially been witnessed, I could have absolutely been the one who was shot because I was always up his butt. Literally, I looked up to him as a role model. You know, he was a very popular guy, had the cool car, and you know, it was just somebody I always wanted to be around. And regardless of whether it was me that was struck or whatever, it definitely would have changed my life to have seen that.
Mhm.
But then at the end of the day, we end up dealing with that, moving away. And honestly, if I hadn't moved, I wouldn't have went to the high school I went to. I wouldn't have went to the college I went to. Wouldn't have had the experiences I had there. Wouldn't have met your mother,
Mhm.
and likely you would not be here.
Yeah.
While as tragic of an event as that was, it changed the direction of our family. And if we now think of all the positives that have come from that sacrifice, and that's the way I look at it, it's it's a sacrifice that was made. Now, he had potentially, if we're playing this back and he has a choice, subconsciously, he chose that. He knew he was going to die, but he had to make that sacrifice in order for us, for this whole thing to happen. We would not be on this podcast today if he does not die. But in the moment, you can't connect those dots.
Yeah.
You don't see it. So it's a very interesting thing. And from there, I can remember that I was very emotional. Matter of fact, I didn't speak because I was so in shock from that event that I didn't speak to anybody. I remember for, I don't know, a few weeks. And I was at school one day and I completely broke down in school. Like literally it just hits me in the moment. And you know, you can imagine I was probably in fourth or fifth grade at the time. And I literally, like, the teacher said something like, Steve, you know, you need to answer this question or whatever. And I literally start crying, leave the classroom. And I want to say it was, if not that night or later that week, I was home alone. My parents were out and I'm sitting there and I'm so scared to, like, because that was my first real piece, you know, where I realized that, hey, death is real.
Mhm.
And I was scared to die. And so I'm like, God, like I spoke to God for the first time realistically in my life, like where it was not just me saying a prayer, because I was in the choir and things like that. And I went to church and I would pray. But that's really not what I'm talking about here. This was, God, I am scared. I don't want to die. Help. Like I literally asked for help in the moment. And all of a sudden, I just felt this calmness come over me. And it was like, it was, I don't want to say no one, like, it wasn't like God spoke to me, but it was like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. And from that point forward, like, I kind of felt like there was more to the picture here. Yes, there is a God. There's something else going on. And like, that was a big moment in my faith,
Mhm.
where I was like, okay, there's more. And that really helped with me, with my
Spirituality.
spirituality.
No, that wasn't even right. Jesus Christ.
That's the word.
Spiritual. You know what?
Spirituality.
Forget it. Forget it. Everyone knows what we mean.
But you know, once again, as a young mind, that really got me thinking. But like I said, you can only tie those dots together through time. And so, for as frustrating as it may be with you in your life, and like you'll go and audition for different things, and it's like it doesn't happen. You say, well, why? Why? You know, I'm putting the work in, I'm putting the effort in. Why isn't this happening? Because there's a bigger plan, and we can't see it in the moment. But 15 years from now, likely you'll be able to see it because it's really strange. And you could probably start to think of this if you look back from the time of, let's say, something as simple as when you went to dance class. Like it's
Mhm.
almost like a chapter in a book,
Mhm.
you know? And so as you get older, I feel like you could start to put chapters together and you could have, multiple things happening at the same time. So it's like you could have your dance career or your dance classes and all you're learning about that, while at the same time you may have had struggles, at school with bullying or something like that. I
Mhm.
know you've experienced that at times. And there it could almost be related as separate chapters in a book and how you overcame that, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So it's really fascinating to me how kind of all of this can come together. So with that being said, getting back to the simulation reality and God being an ultimate designer, that's really where I'm thinking that there's a bigger story here.
Spray, rest.
So you mentioned the Big Bang, and like I get it,
Mhm.
from a science perspective. And if you believe in base reality, that probably likely happened, but it does kind of make sense that the God or somebody could have created that, and that's all part of what we think reality is. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
exactly, but the science kind of leads to it. But if you believe in the Big Bang, it's not that much of a stretch to say, where did the first particle come from? Like, where did the first
Yeah.
whatever come from? It had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So if something came from somewhere, then it's not too much of a stretch to believe that, okay, maybe there is a God, maybe there is a God as a life designer, and he created, you know,
Mm.
us in some likeness.
Yeah. Well, it's when I say the Big Bang Theory, though, it's not like I'm hardcore, like that is what happened. It's because every day I'm not thinking about how we got here or what happened and like how our life is supposed to go. It's more just like I wake up and just try to make the right choices to be a good person. So I don't really think like when I do stuff for like, oh, like, oh, this was God's plan. That could be true. People that say that or think that way, that's perfectly fine. But I'm more just like, what is going to be the right decision for me, rather, like, and just all that stuff, rather than how it all started and got there. But I don't know, it's hard for me to like when people say God, it's just like, how is it just, it doesn't have to be a guy, but like just this one person that people make God out to be that just created everything. Like for whatever reason, it doesn't really click in my head, but that doesn't mean that it's not true.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Big Bang Theory. Yeah, I believe in science more, but that doesn't mean that it was true.
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a lot of mystery out there. The whole mystery of life thing is real. But there are facts and things like that. Like people will argue that, hey, Jesus was here.
I
That
don't
can
think he was real.
that can be proven, okay? But I kind of then relate that back once again to the game theory where people were struggling to understand the game of life, and maybe God did send Jesus, who was, a master gamer, and he comes to show us the right way. That's I,
I don't know about that.
I mean, he was like the perfect player, right? He could show everybody, and it's like, hey, do what I did. It's like easy. It's like it's all about love, right? It's about love your neighbor, and doing right by people. Like I think
Mhm.
that's a bigger portion of the game. It's not just about you. It's also about how you impact the people around you. Um,
If I felt like life was a game, I would probably be so much more successful because I just wouldn't care.
that's true, but
It's just a game.
if you think of it that way, I mean, it does allow you to, when you face a hardship, you could think differently and say, okay, I'm on the hard level, and I got to find a way around it. I got to, once again, I got to figure out how to beat this quest.
I'm I definitely do feel that way when like bad things happen. It's like, all right, what am I gonna do to get around this or figure it out? But I don't know. I think it's tough. I think it kind of just boils down to what resonates with you as a person and then what then that belief like if it brings comfort to you or not. That's what people seek, comfort in things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe in religion, or if you believe in that the world is a big simulation video game, whatever brings comfort to you more is, I don't know, that probably didn't make any sense.
Do you think that impacts the way you live your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a few people who are very religious, and because of that, it determines the choices that they make in life and the way that they view things, their morals and everything. And then people who are not religious who do the same thing, and then their choices and beliefs are very different. But I think that when it comes to that, though, just those what's what I'm trying to say right now? Ask me another question.
Well, from kind of like back to the simulation theory a little bit, if this is truly a game,
Okay.
or I shouldn't say maybe, because maybe you're not really feeling the game thing, but if there is more than one reality, okay, does that change the way you plan on living your life moving forward, or even the way in some of the decisions that you'll make, or when you get hit
Like,
with challenges like you
well,
know
hold on. When you say more than one, like, reality, like, what do you mean? Like, afterlife, or like there's like
yeah,
multiple
I
dimensions?
mean, like Einstein said that there was multiple dimensions and the multiverse, and like there's a whole piece to that, and that is down a whole new rabbit hole. And
This was already hurting my brain.
maybe we'll get into that on another day. But so let's not stick with the multiverse.
Okay.
Let's not make this into a Marvel episode. Let's just stick with multiple realities and the fact that after we die, there's somewhere else that our consciousness goes,
Okay.
and then potentially it could come back or maybe stay there for a period of time. Um, from that perspective. So there's more than just this life is just one opportunity to get some things right, to grow as I would say as your consciousness and to
Hmm.
be better, and then you'll get to do it all over again at some point.
Okay.
So from that perspective, does that make it easier, or when you're hit with a challenge or you're not getting out of this life what you want?
No, I don't think it makes it harder, because I mean, if this is just gonna apply to the way I think, that shit just happens. Shit happens, and you're gonna have seasons of your life where things are really hard, and you have to find a way around them, a way to deal with them. But like, I don't think that it's gonna affect the way that I view like an afterlife or like another reality. Because if there is another reality, like when I die, and because I'm just gonna live forever, but I think if you're a good person, or try to be a good person, maybe you won't have to repay as much karma in the next life, if that's a thing. But I don't know. I don't think it really affects like how I view like the next life, because bad stuff's gonna happen all the time.
And I think I agree with that. I mean, look, every day I try, for one, to put my best self forward, really try to give effort in what I'm doing. And whether it's working in technology and working with government customers and saying, hey, how can I help you? Like, I truly, like, that's something that means a lot to me,
Mhm.
is how I can help other people. And so if that means I'm doing good by people and that serves me well in the end, great. But I kind of feel like it doesn't necessarily impact how I'm living. I think, but I could see how it could.
Mhm.
Um,
I
ca-
think if it was really important to somebody, and it was like, I don't know, like everything they thought about, like people, like they think about their religion and their faith every day, and it affects their choices. I think if it affected you like that, maybe it would be more, I don't know, more important to people.
But it would be cool to think about if we did get points and we're able to allocate those points based on how good of a life that we lived. Like maybe I could come back as Tom Brady or something because I could live the perfect life. It
But his life isn't perfect though. His life just looks perfect,
does look perfect.
but it's definitely. Listen, my Instagram makes it look like I am a pop star. I am not a pop star. You know that.
Sure. I mean, everybody, I mean, the social media, I mean, the reality is we put out there what we want people to see.
Yeah. So Tom Brady might have a cool life. He's got probably a whole lot of money, big house, stuff that ideally people want to have, but it doesn't mean that his mental is good. It doesn't mean his family's good. It doesn't mean that he's not probably in like the millions of dollars worth of debt that nobody knows about and that's like ruining his life. Like nobody knows.
Yeah.
So he probably doesn't have a perfect life. I think if you're gonna have a perfect life, I think you just have to feel satisfied and fulfilled with what you have done and what you are doing. I think that's a perfect life. If you are unhappy, and you don't even have to have a lot, you don't have to have a lot of money, you don't have to have all these things, but if you were just staying true to yourself and being honest with that, and you feel personally fulfilled, that is a perfect life and not the facade of what somebody else has.
Well, look, that's pretty inspirational from you. I
Thank
must have
you.
did a pretty good job as a parent.
When you speak to me with less big words, it computes a little bit better, and then my inner owl comes out.
Yeah. Well, you're right in the fact that I would say I've often asked myself this question. I said, would I trade my girls for
Boys.
having, no, I'm just kidding, for a large sum of money?
Yeah.
Because you guys are super expensive.
Yeah.
So, like, if I didn't have you guys, I could imagine a life where I had lots of money and I could have fancy cars and a big house and all these crazy things. But would that be more meaningful? Would I enjoy that life more? And I'd have to say no. I mean, I've been there and everything that you guys have done, and that's meant more to me than anything else in the world. So, to your point, money isn't everything. I just thought it was an interesting thought process of doing a good job here, getting a significant amount of karma, and then being able to allocate that. And so maybe your life is easier while still being effective at some point. Like,
I mean, maybe, but also if reincarnation's real and I came back as a squirrel, I would be pretty happy about that. Like my lifespan would be pretty short, but I mean,
as long as you had nuts, I mean, I guess you're good.
I mean, all animals are pretty smart. They're really smart. Like I don't just because we're this, maybe this lifetime around, I'm a very intellectual being, but if I was a cat or a squirrel in the next life,
Would that
like
be going like a step back though? I mean,
no,
no,
I
you
don't
don't
think
think?
so. No, because animals had to have been here first. We were definitely not here first. It had to have been animals. Animals were probably created first, and there's so many of them, and they play such a big role in like the world. Like if we didn't have animals, like we're fucked. Sorry, bleep me out. We're like just because we have consciousness doesn't mean that we're more important or have a better life than an animal.
Yeah.
Like they feel too, and I don't know if they think. We don't speak English. Just because we speak English doesn't mean that we're better than your household dog.
No, well, I mean, look, I mean, I believe consciousness extends to animals as well. I mean, if you've owned a dog or a cat and like I've seen them dream, like I see how they interact, how they give love. Regardless, you come home to your pet, they never really complain. They're always like happy to see you, regardless, even for the people that treat them miserably. Most of the time, the pet is super excited, like when you're home. I mean, they don't judge. They're like, yeah, I love you, which I think is awesome. So I'll have to give some thought into that. I was thinking we were going to upskill. You're telling me that upskilling could come in the way of Squirrel.
Because, like, I don't know. I just feel like I, I feel like just calm, like with life. Things are what they are. Life is what it is. Life can be hard and it can be rewarding. And it's kind of just how you navigate and deal with that because you were the only person in control of how you react and feel about things. So as long as I feel like you're being, like I said, true to yourself and how you're feeling and you feel happy and okay with that and satisfied, then okay. Like then if I'm a squirrel in the next life, then fine. But because I'm happy with who I am now, I don't have any
Mm.
complaints. My life isn't technically perfect, no. But like I'm satisfied and content with the way that it is. So why wouldn't I be content being a squirrel?
I do find it interesting, though, that no matter how big of a challenge comes up, there always seems like you can handle it.
Me or just
Just in general, like, sometimes, especially like once again, getting back to, I would say me being a little bit older, whenever things got super tough, when money got super tight, when things got super frustrating for whatever reason, whether it's
Mhm.
work, love, anything, if you just take a deep breath and work through a problem one piece at a time, it's never something that you can't overcome. I feel like everybody has it within them to overcome the challenge.
Now, do you feel like that is, your natural scientific survival, skill, or do you think that is the simulation? Because we are so far from the simulation conversation.
I mean, once again, if we come back to the simulation and say, well, that's a subquest of the simulation, then you knew that you were going to have that challenge and there's a path forward through it. So maybe you're going to have a struggle with addiction. And it's like, okay, that's going to suck, right?
Mm.
But you chose that because you were looking to get over that. Like that's something that you needed to do. And so it's going to be super hard. Like Jesus had to die on the cross. He knew that going in. Okay. And even in that time where he's carrying the cross and he's barely like, I mean, the amount of suffering that dude went through. At one point he says, God, why have you forsaken me? Like the pain was so overwhelming. Even him being like the master of the game for that moment, he was like, dude, I'm struggling here. But he got help in the moment when he was carrying the cross. Like, dude comes out of the cloud. I think a crowd. I think his name was Simon.
He came out of the cloud?
No, not of the cloud. He came out of the
He
crowd
came out of the cloud.
and he helped pick up the cross and like carry it, once again. But the reason I think you can overcome these difficulties is because you knew it going in. So there was a plan, but you had to overcome it. So regardless of how hard it is, you're given the tools. The tools are there for you to do it.
Mhm.
You just have to believe and push through because you're the only one that's going to be able to solve it. You can't wait for someone else to solve your own problems. So it's been a crazy conversation though.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think it was a really interesting conversation. Maybe something that we could revisit at some point. But if anybody out there is looking to learn more about this, I highly recommend the simulation hypothesis. It was an amazing book. It gets a little bit repetitive at times if I'm giving a little bit of a book review because it revisits things multiple times, specifically in the gaming. But it does talk a lot about the technology, which is awesome. Once again, the book Many Lives, Many Masters, that was fascinating. I definitely really enjoyed that. Um, but there's definitely it's a huge mystery, the mystery of life and why we're here and our purpose. And it was a fascinating conversation
It's quite interesting.
for sure. So I'm really looking forward to once again having Jordan here on the podcast and having some technical discussions and digging into all the really cool things that are happening. I mean, hey, if for nothing else, it's a fascinating time to be alive, especially for someone like you. I mean, look, I don't know how many years I got left, But seriously, like you're living in a very cool time. Technology is moving at a crazy speed, and you're going to see things that like,
I don't like it. No, I have never used ChatGPT once.
no, we don't.
Because I don't want to be stupid. Like I don't
So you think it'll make you dumber?
honestly, I feel like just from what I know, because I am not an expert. So if I sound like I'm educated, it's because I am. I don't know. I don't like it because I think that it's just a really easy way to cheat yourself out of actually learning something. Like maybe, yeah, you could say that, you look something up because you don't know something, you want to find the answer, then you learn the answer. Okay, well, are you going to forget that answer? Like, did you actually like learn what you looked up? Like, I feel like using AI to answer all of your questions is just like a like it's cheat code to knowing stuff. Like, I feel like it's just that you're not actually educating yourself. You're not actually learning anything. And you're just, and especially in school, like you're just looking up the answers to put down on a piece of paper or your test or whatever online, and you're not retaining anything you actually learned. You're just looking up answers to get through something that most people really don't want to do. But also, and not even that part, but it's like you see how it's affecting like dance and acting and singing. It's like people can just AI make up a song from, Ariana Grande's voice that she didn't even sing. And people think that it's her, and then they're making money off of it. Or with movies, like they're putting, you can do AI so well now, you can just make a whole movie out of AI. You don't need actors anymore. Well, okay, well, you just displaced like thousands of people out of a job. And with dance too, you can just AI put a dancer, probably won't look that great from where I feel like I see all the AI videos on my TikTok and stuff. You can tell that they're AI, but who's to say it won't get to a point where you're literally, everything is literally AI? What is the point of anything? If everything is a computer, then what is the purpose of us? Nobody's going to have a job. Nobody's going to have to do anything.
Well, obviously, we're going to have to dig into this in a future episode.
I refuse to use it.
But I definitely understand your concerns. But the reality is, like everything, we have to kind of learn to adapt. I mean, the same thing probably could have been said in the Industrial Revolution when people were creating machines, and they started, where everything was manufactured kind of by hand or whatever. And now we have machines that help build cars and things like that. And people probably said the same thing. Well, no, and so, but we just have to adapt.
That's fine. But honestly, don't even get me started because we'll be sitting here for another 45 minutes. And
All right, well, we'll save that for a future episode. But once again, this was definitely interesting, kind of thinking about things, different realities, and how a simulation can kind of play into that. So I'm definitely looking forward. I think we're going to have some fun times on this podcast. And and so for all of you out there, if you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe. Join in on the conversation by leaving some feedback, and we'd love to hear about it. And in the meantime, keep questioning, keep growing, helping others along the way for sure. Build that karma. And whether life is a game or a test or just straight chaos, keep doing your best. And
you're doing better than you think.
Yes, you are. Thank you for joining Thriving in Ambiguity. We look forward to seeing you next time. Later, y'all.
Later, pals.